You know, we all deal with fear in some way. But what if? What if there was a path to be totally free from it? Not just for a moment, but for good. Well, today, we're going to unpack an ancient dialogue that lays out a pretty radical roadmap to fearlessness. We're talking about a way to get past not just the big scares, but that low-level anxiety that's just always there for so many of us.
And this is the question that really kicks the whole thing off. Now, this was asked thousands of years ago, but come on, it could have been asked this morning, right? It's not about being brave when a spider crawls on you. It's about being liberated from all-around fear, that constant background hum of worry and anxiety that we just kind of learn to live with. So where does this incredible wisdom even come from? Well, our journey starts not with some dry philosophical lecture, but with a really personal, really urgent plea from a man named Vasudeva to a legendary sage, Nārada.
Okay, and what's so fascinating is that Vasudeva isn't just some guy off the street. He's powerful, he's respected, he's got it all. And yet, he is just eaten up by fear. He admits that he got completely lost in what the text calls divine illusion. Basically, he spent his whole life chasing worldly things, praying for success, a good family, all that stuff. But he completely missed the real prize, true freedom from suffering.
You can just feel the urgency in his question. He's not messing around with philosophy. He wants a how-to guide. He's asking for a practical set of instructions to get out of this state of constant gnawing fear. It's a question that honestly never gets old. So, the great sage Nārada hears this plea. And what does he do? He doesn't just give a straight answer. Instead, he does something really cool. He tells a story. He frames this profound wisdom inside another, even more ancient conversation. It's like a story within a story. And this is such a brilliant way to teach. By telling this historical account, Nārada is essentially saying, hey, this isn't just my opinion. This is timeless, proven wisdom, passed down through a line of absolute masters who figured this stuff out. And would you look at this lineage? It's pretty incredible. The main thing to get here is that these 9 sages, the Yogendras, they weren't just some random philosophers. They came from this divine line and were known as total experts in spiritual science. They were already free. So yeah, if anyone knows the way out of fear, it's these guys. Now at first glance, King Nimi's question seems a little different, right? But if you look closer, he's aiming for the exact same target. He's asking for the ultimate welfare, the path to complete connection and surrender. It's really the same question as Vasudeva's, just from another angle. One asks how to get rid of fear, the other asks how to find the ultimate good. Turns out, the answer is the same for both. And this is where we get to the absolute heart of the matter. The first of the 9 sages, a master named Kavi, steps up to speak. And he's about to drop a truth bomb that explains not just the solution to fear, but where it comes from in the first place. So, here it is, the big insight. Katie says that fear, or bhayam, comes from being absorbed in duality. What does that mean? It's that feeling of being separate. It's when we forget that we're connected to everything, and we start seeing the world as me versus everything else. You know, us versus them. This deep, deep illusion of being an isolated little self in a huge, scary world, that is the soil where all our fears grow. Okay, so if the problem is a sense of separation, then the cure has to be a practice of radical connection, right? And Kavi gives a super clear 4-step process. First, dedicate all your actions to something bigger than you. Second, constantly hear and speak about this deeper connection, literally rewiring your brain. Third, and this is a huge mental flip, you have to actively see everything, the sky, the air, all living things, as parts of one single sacred body. And finally, number 4, when you see the world that way, you naturally bow down to all of it. You treat everything with reverence because you see it's all part of the same whole. So what happens when somebody really, truly lives this way? Well, the text gives this wild, incredible description. It says the person becomes so filled with love and connection that they just lose all their inhibitions. They laugh out loud, they cry, they sing, they dance, like a madman, totally unconcerned with what anyone else thinks. And you can imagine, right? From the outside looking in, you might think, whoa, that person has completely lost it. But from the perspective of this teaching, it's not madness at all. It's transcendence. It's what happens when that illusion of being a separate person starts to dissolve, and you're just flooded with a joy that can't be contained by normal, polite behavior. To explain how this process works, the text uses this absolutely perfect metaphor. Think about eating.
When you take a bite of food, you get satisfaction, you get nourishment, and your hunger starts to go away. Do these things happen one after the other? Of course not. They happen all at the same time, with every single bite. Kavi says this spiritual path is exactly the same. Every act of connection simultaneously builds more devotion, gives you a direct experience of this unity, and frees you from the junk that causes fear in the first place.
So King Nimi is taking all this in, and then he asks a great follow-up question. He basically says, okay, I get the path, but what does the person who walks this path actually look like? What are their characteristics? And so another sage, Hari, steps forward to give the answer. And what Hari does is fascinating. He breaks it down into 3 levels of consciousness. You can see it here. Way down at the materialistic level, you have someone who's maybe focused on rituals, but still sees everyone as separate. Then you move up to the middle level, where someone is learning to navigate the world with more nuance. But the goal, the real destination, is that topmost level, the person who lives in a state of total unity. So let's just zero in on this topmost state for a second. This is someone whose whole reality has shifted. They see that fundamental unity in absolutely everything. They're not getting jerked around by their senses anymore. Those ideas of mine and yours, which cause so much trouble in the world, have just dissolved. And the result? A deep, unshakable peace. A mind that, as the text says, never wavers from this state, not even for a second. All right, let's bring it all back home. Let's go back to that original, desperate question from Vasudeva. How does all of this, finally, once and for all, put an end to fear? By now, the logic is totally clear, right? Fear is born from feeling separate. This whole path is just a moment-by-moment practice of dissolving that feeling of separation. And by constantly doing that, by honoring the divine spark in everything, you automatically get that amazing trio of results we talked about. Devotion, true insight, and detachment from all the stuff that used to make you anxious. And the final destination, the end result of this whole journey, is captured in this one beautiful, powerful word, shantim. And this isn't just being calm or having less stress for a little while. This means a supreme, unshakable, profound peace. It is the direct cure for the all-around fear that Vasudeva was so desperate to escape. So, as we wrap this up, the wisdom of this ancient story really leaves us with a very practical and maybe challenging question for our own lives. This isn't just a cool philosophical idea. It's a way of seeing. So ask yourself, if you really truly saw everything, the sky, the person next to you, the whole planet, as part of one single sacred body, what would you do differently today? What would you no longer have to be afraid of?
Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Our mission, as always, is to take some really deep foundational source material and, well, give you the ultimate shortcut to really understanding it.
Yeah, make it accessible, but without losing the depth.
Exactly. And today we're diving into some ancient philosophical texts. We're centering on this really profound dialogue about what it means to be a truly devoted soul, Bhāgavata Dharma.
And this isn't just, looking back at history. We're digging into what these texts say is the actual mechanism for achieving real, lasting peace.
Right. So what we're trying to pull out today are 3 key things. First, what are the definitive stages of spiritual commitment? How does that journey look?
Second, is there a simple path? A way to start that isn't overwhelming, because let's face it, often this stuff can seem incredibly complex.
Definitely. And third, what's the end point? The texts talk about atyantiko kama, which sounds incredible. Ultimate welfare, complete fearlessness. Is that actually attainable?
That's the promise. And the setting for this whole conversation is quite dramatic. We're in Dvārakā, the legendary city protected by Lord Govinda himself.
And who shows up? Nārada Muni, Dvārakā, the sage among the gods. He's always traveling. And the text says he's there simply because he's eager to worship Canto. He's like the original spiritual guide.
He really is. And the text immediately throws down the gauntlet, kind of justifying why we should even care about this stuff. It asks this rhetorical question.
Which is?
It asks, basically, who wouldn't worship the Lord's lotus feet if they had their senses under control? I mean, these are feet praised by the greatest immortals.
Immortals praise them. Why?
Because they hold the power to deliver you completely from death.
Sarvato-matiyate. It's stated right there at the beginning. This isn't just about feeling good. It's presented as the path to overcoming mortality itself. A pretty big claim.
Okay, yeah, that definitely raises the stakes. So who actually brings the main question to Nārada? It's Vasudeva. Krishna's father, interestingly enough, he welcomes Nārada, and he clearly holds him in high esteem. He recognizes that sages like Nārada travel purely for the welfare of others.
For everyone.
Yes, for all embodied beings. But he specifically mentions the kapanam, the wretched souls, or maybe those who are spiritually struggling, those in need.
So Vasudeva sees Nārada as this source of, well, pure help.
Exactly. A source of happiness, compassion for the meek, a faithful guide, someone who actually knows the answers people are desperately seeking.
Okay, so that sets up Vasudeva asking the big question. But you mentioned there's a twist.
There is. It's really humanizing. He asks about the duties of the Lord's devotees, the Bhāgavata Dharmas, saying that just hearing about them with faith can free a mortal person from all fear. Sarvato-vayat.
Freed from all fear. That's the goal again.
Powerful. Hugely powerful. That phrase drives the whole thing. But right before asking, he makes this startling confession.
What does he confess?
He admits, with regret, that he, Vasudeva, previously worshipped the infinite Lord, Ananta, the one who actually gives liberation, muktidam.
Yes, he worshipped the giver of liberation. For what?
For the sake of having children. For progeny. Prajartha.
Wait, hold on. He's standing before the source of ultimate freedom, and he asks for a bigger family. That seems...
It seems completely backwards, right? Especially for someone like Vasudeva. But the text gives a reason.
Which is?
He says he was bewildered by deva-māyayā, divine illusion.
Ah, Maya. So it's this cosmic illusion that tricked him.
Yes, but it highlights how subtle it is. It's not just some external magic trick. It's an internal misprioritization. Even when you're right next to the source of liberation, Maya can make you use that access to ask for things that just reinforce your temporary material life, family, success, whatever, instead of asking for the permanent solution.
Wow, that hits hard.
Yeah.
The idea that even someone so close could, aim so low spiritually because of this illusion.
It's a core lesson right there, isn't it? We often spend our spiritual energy, our prayers, trying to secure the temporary, which just shows how deeply ingrained that misconception is.
Yeah, it really does.
And realizing this mistake is what fuels Vasudeva's plea. He wraps it up by saying, essentially, please, instruct us on how we can easily and jasa truly get free from all this misery and fear that surrounds us.
Easily. He needs the simple path. He's learned the hard way that asking for the wrong thing, even from the right source, doesn't lead to freedom.
Exactly. He doesn't want another complex detour. He wants the direct route out of fear.
Okay, so that really clarifies our mission here. Find that simple mechanism Nārada offers to dismantle the illusion and achieve that fearlessness.
And Nārada is genuinely pleased by the question. He says Vasudeva's resolve is most appropriate. Why? Because this inquiry isn't just for Vasudeva. It's about Bhāgavata Dharmas that benefit the entire universe. Vishvabhavanan.
So this knowledge isn't meant to be secret or exclusive.
Not at all. It's intended for universal welfare. And Nārada immediately emphasizes the power of what he's about to share. He calls it sad dharma, true religion.
And what does he say about its power?
It's quite staggering. He claims that whether you just hear it, recite it, meditate on it, honor it, or even just inwardly approve of it, it immediately purifies.
Immediately. That sounds incredibly potent. Purification from what?
Well, here's the amazing part. He says it can purify even someone described as an enemy of the demigods and the universe.
Whoa! So even the worst offenders. This path has the power to instantly cleanse them.
That's the claim. It suggests a kind of spiritual first aid that's immediate and works regardless of your past actions or negative conditioning. It cuts right through.
Okay, that's a big promise. How does Nārada back this up? Where does this teaching come from?
Good question. He doesn't just present it as his own idea, he grounds it in tradition. He refers to an ancient historical narration, an itihasa.
An old story.
Yes, a specific conversation between a king named Nimi, the king of Videha, and the descendants of a great figure named Avha. This frames the teaching not as something new, but as a timeless principle being passed down.
So who is this Avha? Why is his lineage important here?
It's all about establishing authority. The text traces the lineage back from Svayambhuva to Avha, and crucially, Avha is identified as an expansion of the Supreme Lord himself.
An incarnation.
An expansion, yes. Who descended specifically, the text says, to explain the principles of liberation, Mokkha Dharma Vivekaya. So the guidance we're about to hear originates from the highest possible source, according to this tradition.
Got it. So the authority is paramount.
Absolutely. And there's this fascinating little detail tucked in there about Abba's family.
Oh, yeah. What's that?
He had 100 sons, and the eldest, Afarata, was so incredibly devoted to Lord Nārada that after he gave up his kingdom and everything this whole land described as wonderful, Adbhutam came to be known as Bharata after him.
So the name of the land itself comes from this legacy of devotion.
That's what the text suggests. It really roots the entire spiritual identity of the place in this concept of supreme devotion. Bharata's commitment literally leaves its mark on the world map.
That's quite a legacy. So out of these 100 sons, who are the ones Nimi speaks to?
Right, so 81 of the sons apparently followed the path of rituals and fruitive actions, karma tantra, but 9 of them, these 9 became great sages. They're the ones we need to focus on.
The guides for this deep dive.
Exactly. They're described as Bhāgavata Munaya, greatly fortunate sages and experts in self-realization, Atmavida Vijayartha. These are the 9 Yogendras.
And who are they? Do we need to know all the names?
The names are listed. Kavi, Hari, Antarika, Prabhuda, Pipalayana, Avihotra, Drumila, Kamasa, and Karajana. But honestly, their individual names are less important than their collective qualification.
Which is, what makes them qualified to answer Nimi's and by extension Vasudeva's question?
It's their state of being. They're described as wandering freely, perceiving the entire universe cause and effect, manifest and unmanifest, as nothing but the form of the Lord.
Wow. So they see divinity in everything.
Everything. They are essentially liberated souls, muktash karanti. The text says they roam unhindered through all the different realms, gods, humans, celestial beings, wherever they please. Their vision is non-dual. They see the cosmos as non-different from the self, atmano yotireke.
Okay, that's crucial. So the answer we're getting isn't just, like, intellectual speculation.
Not at all. It's coming from beings who have, according to the text, actually transcended material limitations and directly experienced the unity of all existence. Their knowledge is lived.
Got it. So these 9 sages, these Yogendras, they arrive unexpectedly at a big sacrifice King Nimi is performing.
Right, Yadid, by chance, or perhaps by divine arrangement. And Nimi isn't just any king. He's clearly spiritually astute.
How does he react?
The moment he sees them, shining like the sun, he and everyone there immediately stand up. They recognize them instantly as direct associates of the Lord, Partadan, who travel the worlds just to purify others.
So there's immediate recognition and reverence.
Absolutely. And Nimi's own reflection right then sets up another key point for us, building on Vasudeva's fear. He thinks about value.
Value. What does he conclude?
He acknowledges, yes, the human body is rare, but it's also fleeting, kompegura, gone in a flash. But he realizes even rarer than a human birth is seeing these dear associates of the Lord like the Yogendras.
Rarer than human life itself.
That's his conclusion. And it leads him to this really profound statement. He says that in this material world, defined by everything constantly changing and disappearing, even half a moment's association with such saintly persons, satsauga, is the greatest treasure for mankind. It's half a moment.
Half a moment. That's radical. He's putting that brief contact above wealth, power, long life, everything else.
Everything. It suggests that direct contact with realized souls is the most powerful catalyst for change, more powerful than years of just reading books or doing rituals alone. The association itself is the treasure.
Okay, that really elevates the importance of seeking out genuine spiritual guides.
Definitely. And based on this conviction, Nimi asks the ultimate question, echoing Vasudeva, but taking it even further.
What does he ask?
He says, essentially, tell us about the duties of devotees, the Bhagavata Dharmas, by doing which the Supreme Lord, who is unborn, Aja, becomes so pleased that he even gives himself to the surrendered soul.
Gives himself? He's asking how to make God surrender to the devotee.
That's the implication. He's asking for the spiritual technology, the formula, to bind the Supreme with love. It's the highest possible ambition.
Wow. Okay, so who answers this ultimate request?
One of the Yogendras, named Kavi, steps forward. He confirms Nimi's question is spot on and then gets right into the method for achieving that ultimate fearlessness Vasudeva was asking for.
And what's the core method?
Kavi states it plainly. Ultimate fearlessness, akukastadbayam, comes from the constant daily worship of Afuta's, the infallible Lord's lotus feet.
Okay, worship. But how does that specifically remove fear? What's the mechanism?
Kavi explains, it tackles fear at its root. He says this worship dissolves fear arising from 2 sources. First, the udvinya buddhu, the agitated, disturbed mind.
Right, the anxious mind we all know.
And second, more fundamentally, asadbhava, the false identification with the temporary body.
So it goes right to that core illusion,
Yeah.
thinking I am this body.
Exactly. The practice directly undermines the deepest source of existential anxiety, which is identifying with something inherently temporary and perishable.
But Kavi also promised this path would be easy, right? Addressing Vasudeva's need for something not overwhelming.
Yes, he absolutely delivers on that. He says the methods the Lord himself prescribes for self-realization are easy, Anya, even for the Evadum, even for those who are, let's say, ignorant or unsophisticated in these matters.
Easy and safe.
Easy and safe. The text emphasizes this path of devotion is incredibly secure. The guarantee given is just stunning.
What's the guarantee?
It says that someone who takes shelter of this path never becomes careless or falters. And then comes this incredible image.
Which is?
Even while running or with closed eyes, he does not stumble nor fall in this world.
Running or with closed eyes.
Yeah.
What does that signify?
Think about it. If you're running, you're focused externally, maybe rushing. If your eyes are closed, you're internally distracted, not paying attention to the physical world.
Right. Both seem like situations where you would stumble.
Precisely. But the path of devotion is presented as being so intrinsically safe, so self-correcting, that even if you're distracted or rushing or temporarily lapse in focus, you're protected. You won't fall off the path. It's like a spiritual fail-safe.
That's incredibly reassuring, especially for anyone who feels they often get distracted or overwhelmed. So if the path is that safe, what's the actual activity? What do you do on this path?
Okay, this is the absolute core of Kavi's instruction. It's the principle of complete surrender, laid out in what you could call the golden rule of offering.
The golden rule of offering, what is it?
Kavi says, whatever you do, whatever, with your body, your speech, your mind, your senses, your intelligence, or even just out of your natural inclinations, your habits, svabhavat,
All of that.
you must offer everything, sakalam, to the Supreme Lord Nārada, consciously thinking, this is for him, Nārayati.
Everything, not just like the prayers or the temple visits.
Everything. The words you use at work, the thoughts you have while commuting, the way your mind naturally works when you're planning something. It demands a total integration of life with this devotional consciousness.
That's comprehensive. How does that act, offering everything, get rid of fear? What's the connection?
Okay, for that, we have to go back to the diagnosis of fear Kavi gave earlier. Remember Dutiyavani Misheta?
Absorption in duality. The second thing.
Exactly. Fear arises when we turn away from the Lord Ajadapatasya. And turning away does two things according to the text. It causes viparaya, misconception or misunderstanding reality, and then asmityo, forgetfulness of our true nature, all because of Maya.
Can you break down absorption in duality a bit more practically? What does that look like day to day?
It means believing that your ultimate security, your ultimate happiness, or your ultimate identity comes from something other than the eternal, the Lord. It's thinking, if I just get this money, then I'll be safe. Or this relationship is the source of my happiness. Or my reputation defines me.
So relying on things that are inherently temporary.
Precisely. Because money, relationships, reputation, they're all temporary. They will fluctuate or disappear. Believing they are the ultimate source of security is the misconception. And the fear we feel is the natural result when those temporary things inevitably start to shake or crumble. Fear is the symptom of relying on the unreliable.
Okay, so fear isn't just about specific threats. It's the background dread that comes from basing our existence on shaky ground.
You got it. And Kavi hammers this point home. He argues that this second thing, this duality we get absorbed in, actually has no real independent existence. Avidyamana. It appears real in the mind, but it's like a dream or a daydream, sapna manaratho.
Like mistaking a dream for reality.
Exactly. So the solution, the wise person, understanding this, must actively restrain the mind's tendency to create these dualistic projections, its constant planning, desiring, doubting. The Salkalpa Vikalpaka. By restraining that, you achieve fearlessness.
And the offering, the surrender, how does that restrain the mind?
It redirects the mind's energy.
Right.
Instead of the mind constantly projecting onto temporary things, trying to find security there, the act of offering everything redirects that energy towards the permanent, towards Nārayā. Devotion becomes the practical. And Kavi says, easy way to pull the mind out of the dream and focus it on the real.
Okay, that makes sense. Surrender starves the illusion and feeds the reality. So we have the why and the how of fearlessness. Now, what does this look like? What does a person practicing this actually do and feel? Kavi gets into that too, right?
He does. And his description is, well, Pretty radical compared to conventional expectations. He describes the sadhana, the practical activities.
Like what?
First, the devotee should constantly listen to the stories about the Lord, his auspicious births, his amazing deeds, especially referencing him as Ratholga, the one carrying the disc. Immerse the mind in divine narratives.
Okay, listening. What else?
They must continuously sing the Lord's names and understand their meanings. And here's a key part. They should wander about unashamed and detached. Vilajo Vikardasaga.
Unashamed. That stands out. Why unashamed?
It implies casting off social conditioning, right?
Yeah.
Not worrying about what others think, being free from the need for approval or the fear of looking foolish. Their focus is internal on the Lord, not on external appearances or judgments. Detached from outcomes, detached from opinions.
So a kind of radical authenticity driven by devotion.
Exactly. And this intense, continuous practice, listening, singing, being unashamedly detached, leads to a very specific and maybe startling emotional outcome.
Which is?
The text says, the devotee whose heart becomes deeply attached, jata anurago, gets overwhelmed. Their heart is agitated by ecstatic love. And they start acting completely outside normal social conventions. Lokabahya.
How so? What do they do?
They laugh loudly, they cry, they shout out, they sing, they dance. Like a madman.
Unmadavat.
Like a madman. That sounds disruptive. Is the text saying true devotion makes you seem crazy to the outside world?
It suggests that genuine, uninhibited love for the absolute can't really be contained by polite society's rules.
Yeah.
I mean, if you truly grasped the ultimate reality, wouldn't your reaction seem disproportionate compared to everyday concerns?
Yeah.
It's not clinical madness. It's being mad with love, indifferent to the judgments of those still caught up in the mundane.
Okay, so it's a symptom of profound inner transformation, not just losing your mind.
Right. And this inner state culminates in what's called the universal vision.
What's that? The devotee starts to perceive everything, the sky, the air, fire, water, earth, stars, planets, all living beings, the directions, trees, rivers, oceans, everything, as the literal body of Lord Hari Shireo.
Wow. Not just in everything, but as his body.
That's the vision described. It's the practical payoff of realizing non-duality. They don't just think God is everywhere abstractly. They see the elements as his limbs, the creatures as his moving parts.
So how do they interact with the world then?
They bow down with exclusive devotion, ananya, to the sky, to the air, to the trees, to other beings. Why? Because for the advanced devotee, there is nothing else to interact with except the Lord's form. Everything is sacred because everything is him.
That's a complete shift in perception.
Totally. And Kavi wraps up his instructions with maybe the most encouraging part, especially for those worried about how long spiritual progress takes. He reveals this simultaneous triad.
Simultaneous triad, what does that mean?
He says that 3 key results of surrendering to the Lord happen all at the same time, ekakala, instantly.
Okay, what are the 3 results?
1. Devotion, bhaktya. 2. Realization of the Supreme Lord Parishanupava. 3. Detachment, raktir, from everything else.
All at once. But usually we think of it as sequential, right? Like first you work really hard on detachment, then maybe you develop some devotion, and then eventually you might get some realization.
Exactly. This teaching completely flips that linear model. Kavi says, nope, the moment you sincerely engage in surrender, all 3 blossom together.
How does he explain how that's possible?
He uses this brilliant everyday analogy, eating.
Eating. How does eating explain simultaneous spiritual results?
Think about it. With every single bite of food you take, anugasam, 3 things happen simultaneously. You get satisfaction, delight, sense of pleasure or contentment. You get nourishment, put, the actual substance that builds your body, and you get relief from hunger. Kodapaya, the discomfort of hunger, starts to go away.
Okay. Satisfaction, nourishment, relief from hunger. All from the one act of taking a bite.
I see. Right. You don't take a bite and only get satisfaction, then wait an hour for nourishment, then wait another hour for the hunger pangs to stop. They happen together, instantly, with the act itself.
So applying that to surrender.
The moment you genuinely offer yourself in devotion, you simultaneously feel the satisfaction of connecting with the divine. That's bhakti. You simultaneously receive spiritual nourishment, an inner understanding or experience of the Lord. That's parishanuhava. And simultaneously, the hunger for lesser material things starts to diminish. That's viraktya, detachment.
Wow. So you don't have to wait for detachment to be perfected before you can feel devotion or get realization, they prove each other in real time.
Exactly. The relief from material craving is the proof of detachment. The inner satisfaction is the proof of devotion. The sense of being spiritually nourished is the proof of realization. They validate the process instantly.
That's incredibly motivating. It makes the path seem much less like a long, uncertain slog.
It does, and that's Kavi's conclusion. This continuous worship, this act of surrender, leads directly and efficiently to supreme peace, paroshanti.
Okay. Kavi has laid out the path, the practice, the results, the vision. It feels complete. But King Nimi wants more detail, doesn't he?
He does. He's practical. He's heard the philosophy now. He wants to know how to spot it in the real world. He asks, essentially, okay, what are the specific duties, the dharma, of such a devotee? How do they actually act? What do they say? And crucially, by what signs lagaya can we recognize someone who is truly dear to the Lord? He wants the observable characteristics.
He wants field identification markers for devotees.
Pretty much. And this is where another Yogendra named Hari steps forward to answer. Hari provides the detailed classification system. This moves us from the general method to the specific levels of attainment.
Yeah, he defines 3 levels.
Yes. 3 distinct categories or classes of devotees.
Okay, let's break them down. Where does he start? Maybe with the entry level.
He does. He describes the praka devotee, which you could translate as the materialistic or beginner devotee.
Okay, what defines the prakat stage? What are their signs?
The key thing is that they do have faith. That's essential. They worship Lord Hari with faith, but the limitation is where they focus that faith. The text says arkayam eva, predominantly or only in the deity form, the statue or picture in the temple or home.
So their devotion is very localized to the ritual object.
Largely, yes. And the corresponding limitation, Hari points out, is that they don't typically extend that same reverence or love towards the Lord's devotees, tad bhakteim, or towards other living beings in general.
Ah, I see. So it's a very vertical connection, me and the deity, but lacking the horizontal connection, compassion, respect for others, especially other devotees.
That's a good way to put it. Think of someone who might be incredibly meticulous about their personal religious rituals, very faithful in their private worship, but perhaps they're still critical of other devotees, maybe involved in gossip, or don't show much empathy for people outside their immediate circle. The devotion hasn't yet broadened into universal vision or fellowship.
Okay, that makes sense as a starting point. What's the next level up?
The next level is the Madhyama devotee, the intermediate or middle level one. And this stage is defined almost entirely by how they relate to others. Hari gives a very practical 4-part matrix for their social interactions.
A 4-part matrix. Okay, what are the components?
It's about directing the right sentiment towards the right person. First, love, prema, towards the Supreme Lord, that's the foundation. Second, friendship, maitri, towards the Lord's sincere devotees, recognizing and valuing fellowship.
Okay, love for God, friendship for his people. What are the other 2? They sound more complex.
They are. Third is mercy, artha, towards the innocent or the spiritually uninformed. Those who don't know better or are perhaps struggling but aren't malicious, you offer them compassion.
Right, mercy for the innocent. And the 4th, this one sounds tricky.
It is. The 4th is neglect or disregard, upeka, towards those who are envious or actively hostile, dyatsu.
Neglect. That seems harsh. Doesn't that contradict the idea of universal love or compassion? Why neglect anyone?
That's the crucial point to understand. It's not about emotional hostility or wishing them ill. Upeka here is more like strategic withdrawal. It's a pragmatic decision about energy allocation.
Energy allocation. How so?
The envious or hostile here refers to those who are actively trying to undermine your spiritual practice or who are fundamentally antagonistic towards devotion itself. Engaging with them, trying to argue or convince them, is often completely fruitless. It just drains your spiritual energy.
Like trying to fill a leaky bucket.
Exactly. So the Madhyama devotee, being mature, recognizes this. They don't hate the envious person, but they also don't waste precious time and energy trying to engage them in a pointless conflict. They practice calculated indifference or neglect. They simply don't give that negativity their energy. They conserve it for positive connections, for the Lord, for fellow devotees, for the innocent.
Okay, reframe that way. It sounds less like judgment and more like spiritual self-preservation and efficiency. Very practical.
It's extremely practical. It shows a level of discernment about where to invest your spiritual and emotional resources. And mastering this kind of discernment is what paves the way for the highest level.
Which is the Uttama Bhagavata the topmost devotee.
Precisely. And this level, Hari explains, isn't primarily defined by specific behaviors towards others, but by their fundamental vision, their state of consciousness.
And what is that vision? We heard Kavi touch on it.
Hari confirms it and makes it central. The Uttama devotee sees the presence of the Supreme Soul, the Lord, within all living beings, Sarvabhute, and simultaneously sees all beings situated within the Lord and within their own self.
So complete interconnectedness, no separation.
Zero separation in their perception. It's the full realization of the non-dual understanding Kavi spoke about. The Lord is the substance, the universe is Kamshur. His energy or body and all sparks of consciousness are intrinsically part of that whole.
Okay. If that's their vision, what are the observable signs Nimi asked for? How does this vision translate into characteristics we can see? Hari lists some, right?
Yes, he gives several key indicators. First, detachment from reactions.
Detachment from reactions, meaning?
It means while they live in the world and use their senses, they eat, they see, they hear, they aren't emotionally thrown off balance by sense experiences. When they encounter something pleasant, they don't get overly excited or attached, nahayati. When they encounter something unpleasant, they don't get disturbed or hateful, nadave.
Why not? How do they manage that?
Because they see all these experiences, good and bad, as simply the play of Vishnu's illusory energy, mayam. They recognize it as temporary phenomena unfolding within the Lord's energy, so they don't personally identify with the ups and downs. They can participate without being enslaved by the results.
Like watching a movie. You see the drama, but you know it's not ultimately real in the same way.
That's a good analogy. They're in the world, but not fundamentally of it in the sense of being controlled by its dualities. And this leads to the second sign, freedom from the core miseries of material life.
What are those core miseries according to the text?
Hari lists the classic ones: birth, death, hunger, thirst, fear, and general distress. These are things that constantly afflict the ordinary body, senses, mind, and intellect.
And the Uttama devotee is just immune to these. They don't feel hunger or fear.
It's more subtle than that. The text says they remain undiluted, avimuhyamana, by these things. It's not necessarily that their body stops feeling hunger, but their consciousness isn't bewildered or overwhelmed by it. They don't identify with the body's suffering.
How do they maintain that distance?
Through constant remembrance of Hari, smritya hare. That remembrance acts like an anchor, keeping their consciousness fixed on the eternal reality, even while the temporary body goes through its cycles. The remembrance prevents the material condition from derailing their inner peace.
Okay, so the remembrance is the key shield. What's the third sign?
Inner purity. This is profound. The text states that in the heart of the Uttama devotee, the very seeds of material desire, kama, and the impulse for fruitive action, karma, action done for personal gain, simply do not sprout.
They don't even arise. Why not?
Because their heart has become Vasudeva Nilaya, the exclusive resting place of Lord Vasudeva. There's simply no room, no fertile ground left for those lesser desires to take root. The desire for the Lord has become all-consuming, purifying the heart completely.
Wow. Complete inner transformation. And the fourth sign, you mentioned it tackles ego.
Yes, specifically social ego. The Uttama devotee has absolutely no egoistic attachment, ahambhava, the sense of I am this, based on their physical body, their family lineage or birth circumstances, jati, their actions or achievements, their social class or stage of life, varshrama.
So they've completely transcended identification with all those labels society uses to define us.
Completely. They know their true identity lies beyond all temporary material designations. They are free from the social games of status and identity. And the text adds that such a person, free from this ego, is specifically dear to Hari.
That freedom itself makes them dear to the Lord.
It seems so. And this whole state is summed up by the idea of equality.
Equality, how so?
They make no distinction between mine and someone else's, whether it's regarding possessions or even the sense of self. They see the same spiritual essence everywhere. Therefore, they are inherently peaceful, shanta, and equal towards all living beings, sarvabhutasama. This equality isn't just a policy, it's the natural expression of their non-dual vision.
Okay, those signs paint a picture of someone truly transformed. Is there one final, ultimate sign?
Yes, Hari gives one more, emphasizing the sheer unwaveringness of the foremost devotee, the Vayakagya.
And what is that?
It's their absolute inability to be distracted from the Lord's lotus feet. Not even for the tiniest fraction of a second lavanamyardamapi. Even if you offered them the entire wealth and power of all the three worlds, Tribhuvana Vipava, it just wouldn't register as valuable compared to their connection with the Lord.
That's an incredible level of internal focus and stability. Power, wealth, nothing can pull them away.
Nothing. And there's this beautiful analogy used to explain why they are so stable and free from misery, connecting back to Vasudeva's original plea.
Another analogy, what is it?
It says their heart has been permanently cooled. Cooled by what? By the moonlight emanating from the jewel-like toenails of the Lord's lotus feet meditated upon within.
Moonlight from the Lord's feet cools the heart.
That's the poetic imagery. Devotion acts like soothing, cooling moonlight. And the implication is clear. If your heart is constantly bathed in this cool, divine light, how can the heat of material miseries possibly arise or disturb you? It's like asking how the scorching heat of the sun can persist once the cool full moon has risen. It can't. Devotion provides permanent relief from suffering.
That's a powerful image. The definitive answer to escaping fear and misery. But you mentioned the most powerful revelation comes right at the end.
Yes, the very last verse of Hari's description reveals something astonishing about the relationship between the topmost devotee and the Lord.
What does it reveal?
It describes this chief devotee as someone whose heart Lord Hari will not, or perhaps cannot, abandon, even though the Lord is the supreme controller, the destroyer of all sins, and completely free to act as he pleases.
Wait. The Lord cannot leave the devotee's heart. Why not? Isn't the Lord supposed to be totally independent? This sounds like the devotee has power over the Lord.
That's the radical implication. Why can't the Lord leave? The text gives the reason. Because the Lord himself is bound by the bonds of love.
Bound by love.
Yes, the devotee's intense, pure love acts like ropes, lovingly binding the Lord's feet within their heart, making it impossible for him to leave. The supreme love of the devotee makes the supreme Lord willingly dependent on their affection. It's a complete reversal of the usual power dynamic.
Wow. That's stunning. The ultimate power is the power of love that can bind even the absolute.
Exactly.
Okay, let's try and recap this incredible journey. We started with Vasudeva, feeling regret, burdened by fear, asking Nārada for a simple path to ultimate welfare, to fearlessness.
Right. And Nārada responded by citing this ancient conversation between King Nimi and the 9 Yogendras, these fully liberated sages whose authority comes from direct experience of non-duality.
Then Kavi, one of the Yogendras, gave us that simple path. Complete surrender, offering absolutely everything, actions, words, thoughts, inclinations to the Lord. This, he said, automatically dismantles fear by pulling our focus away from the illusion of duality.
And he described how this leads to ecstatic experiences, seeing everything as the Lord's body, and crucially, that the main results, devotion, realization, and detachment, all arise simultaneously, like satisfaction, nourishment, and relief from hunger when you eat. No long waiting periods.
Then Nimi pushed for specifics. How do we recognize these devotees? And Hari stepped in with the classification. The Pruka focused mainly on the deity, lacking broader compassion.
Then the Madhyama, the intermediate, defined by that sophisticated 4-part ethic. Love for God, friendship with devotees, mercy for the innocent, and strategic neglect of the envious to conserve energy.
And finally, the Uttama, the highest devotee, defined not just by actions, but by vision, seeing the Lord in everything and everyone, marked by detachment from reactions, freedom from identifying with material miseries, inner purity where desires don't sprout, and complete freedom from social ego.
Absolutely. And all of this culminates in that ultimate state where the devotee is so unwavering, their heart so cooled by devotion, that they cannot be distracted even by universal sovereignty. And the final sign. Their love is so powerful it actually binds the Supreme Lord, who becomes unable to leave their heart.
So the journey moves from seeking freedom from fear to achieving a state where love itself becomes the ultimate binding force, paradoxically granting the highest freedom.
Precisely. The path that starts with seeking personal liberation ends with binding the source of liberation itself through sheer love.
It really flips the script on power. We usually think power is about control, independence. But here, the ultimate achievement seems to be this interdependence based on love. The unborn Lord, Ajah, gives himself to the surrendered soul and then finds himself bound by that soul's love.
Which leads us to that final thought for you, the listener, to really chew on. If this highest state means the devotee's love essentially makes the all-powerful Lord willingly dependent on them, what does that truly tell us about the nature of power and freedom in the universe?
Is ultimate liberation found not just in mastering our own minds, but in that seemingly vulnerable act of making ourselves completely available to love and receiving love so intensely that it redefines reality itself? Something to think about.